In this episode of the How to Do Your 20s podcast, I have on Jason, and he is a performance, longevity, and optimal health practitioner. He's got a ton of knowledge. We were talking a little bit before the podcast, and I was already blown away with everything he knows. So let's dive right into it. First off, actually, Jason, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit, how did you get involved in this space? What's your story and how you got into this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to keep it short. These stories get long, but essentially, I had my own health issues that started at 13 years old. I was an athlete, had tremendous knee issues and further joint issues in some of my other joints as I got older, and no doctor could explain it. They said it was overuse, all these things, which is complete bullshit because at 13, your joints don't wear out. That's just not how the body works, right? So even at that young age, I knew that there was some nonsensical aspect that these doctors were telling me. And it was in my quest to figure out what was going on, and then at 21-ish or so, I had this socially debilitating skin condition. It's called seborrheic dermatitis. It's dandruff, but it's on your face. And so you end up having these oily, red, flaky, nasty things like all over your face. And I remember playing football. I played college football, took off my helmet one practice and just like scraped my forehead and 10 or 12 layers of like skin just came off and I just chucked it to the ground. I mean, it was that bad. So again, doctors couldn't really provide me any answers. And I know this may be hard to believe for you, younger 20 somethings out there, but the internet wasn't really the internet at that point. It was, AOL and, web crawler, if any of you remember that. You couldn't look up stuff on YouTube or there wasn't these vast databases of knowledge and personal experience out there for you to draw from. So it was hard to figure out what was going on. And so ultimately that led me just down this research path of trying to figure out what was happening. And essentially what I found out was that it's all nonsense, what I was being told about health. And then that later spiraled into bigger things like finance and corporations and big pharma and the whole web of just garbage that's out there. And so me uncovering all of that kind of set the stage for just a new understanding and a new area of research and discovery for me. And so I was a mechanical engineer for 10 years. My mind is sort of set up for systems thinking and problem solving, and that's what I've always done. As I navigated out of engineering, I started slowly taking on clients. As an athlete, I was always interested in fitness and nutrition, right? So like yourself, it's just a natural thing you fall into for your own purposes, and that's what it was for me. And then as I gained knowledge, I started coaching people and helping people with their health, and then one thing after the next, I ended up leaving my engineering job and doing this full time, helping people with chronic disease and that kind of thing. So that's essentially how I got my start in all this. And that's where I am today, and who knows where it ends up going.
Do you see yourself more on the performance side of things or more on the longevity side of things? Like if you were to give advice, like which one do you prefer to give advice on?
Yeah, I mean, I started off in the chronic disease space, right? So it was literally helping people with whatever issues they had. And then in that space, I realized I don't really want to spend my life managing diseases or recovering from diseases, right? Helping people to recover. And while that still is a big part of what I do, the message that I like to spend. So that's my personal clients, right? The people that come to me are not the people that are 24 in great health and thinking about longevity, right? It's just not what people do. You don't come and pay somebody for that advice. So the people I get are still chronic disease type of things, but the message that I want to spread with my podcast, with my blog, with my talks, whatever I do, is centered around longevity now. I think that is really where I want to be. The performance I found is there's so many people out there doing performance, and I think that's great. Longevity, anti-aging, if you will, essentially the absence of developing chronic disease. So in other words, the prevention of chronic disease is drastically misunderstood. It's not well studied. There aren't a lot of doctors out there that practice this type of medicine. And so, that's the message that I'm hoping to spread. And that's really where I want to be, is in the longevity. But the performance side to me is interesting. It's fun, right? It's like, how can you get more performance out of your brain? Can you get more performance out of your body? And the reason I think that is important, and it's still part of what I do, it's kind of this dual aspect of what I try to preach. The reason that's so interesting is because to me, that's what it comes down to. If your brain or your body doesn't work, you can't live life the way you're supposed to. And to me, it's all about the experiences you gain, whether that's with your brain, whether that's shutting off your brain, whether that's, with your body, whatever it is. It's all about the experience, and the experience is the teacher in life. And I think that is, if I could convey one message to your younger audience and something I wish I knew back then, it's that knowledge sucks. Knowledge is stupid. Knowledge is transient. Knowledge will always change. You will never, in other words, I hope that you think that I hope that you're seeking to think differently next year, because that means you're growing, you're learning, and you're evolving. If you're stuck in a thought pattern, you're generally not going to continue to evolve. And this comes down to the notion of understanding that you don't know shit. And that's totally okay, because it's something the ego wants to get a hold of, right? To understand, to grasp something, to fully engage in that knowledge base. But understand that there is no final destination of knowledge. You continue to seek it. You continue to grow with it. And the journey is in the evolution of that knowledge, or the evolution of the understanding. So don't try to be the smartest person in the room. You want to be in the room where everybody else is smarter than you, and you want to shut your mouth and you want to listen, right? You want to take everybody else's info in, because that is going to help guide your experience. And experience is the real teacher. It's the only teacher, because your experience is different than mine. I can never share with you the knowledge, because that assumes that there's this knowledge that exists, like there's this definite thing of what knowledge is or what a fact is, and that's not reality. The reality is that you have your truth, I have my truth. The thing that works for you may not work for me, vice versa, or they may. And so it really isn't about taking in other people's experience, digesting it, find out what resonates with you kind of at the gut or at the heart level, not with your brain, and then go do something with it, right? Put that into use, because that experience, or that life experience, is going to be your only teacher. And to seek knowledge from somebody else, it's almost nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. You can seek understanding, and then you have to try to apply that. And as you apply that, then you get a sense of what your truth really is. So that's kind of really the way I think about all this, is trying to help people understand some things that I've picked up, and that I've picked up from myself and through others. And then hopefully they can put that into use and find out if that's their truth.
So, for the listeners out there, Jason has an Indiegogo going on right now. It's the Truth About Aging docuseries, and I'll put a link in the show notes, all that kind of stuff. I want to talk a little bit about that, and what kind of stuff are you sharing in that docuseries? What kind of knowledge is being dropped, I
Yeah,
guess?
yeah. And this is the thing about longevity, right? And we kind of were talking a little bit before this, and I mentioned that it's not something that you think about, when you're 50, how to extend your life. You think about it, at least in your 18, 22, 25, that range, at least. Hopefully your mother is thinking about it before you're even conceived. So the real aspect of longevity, and you can look at tribal societies, and what they do is they actually try to enforce or I guess educate two young couples, or before they're even married, a man and a woman, and they put them on a certain kind of type of diet, because they know that once they get married, they're going to have sex and potentially have kids. And so they want the two people that are going to get married to be in the highest state of health, to ensure successful, healthy birth, so that there's no catastrophe in that process, and also so the child will develop properly. And so, real health, real longevity actually begins preconception, and it continues throughout your life. And so you can think about your first, let's say, 18 to 25 years as growing, as developing. And then somewhere around 25-ish, the body stops growing, and it kind of stabilizes. And the goal then is to maintain that, right? To maintain that as long as you can. But in order to, let's say you grow, you're growing, you get to some high level of, let's say, health or function, and then it starts declining at some rate. Well, if you don't develop properly, and your sort of baseline health or your maximum health is lower than it could be, well, of course, it's going to be harder to stabilize that or to keep that at a high level. So you want to get it to as high level of health and function as possible. in your growing years and then maintain that. So the goal of this docu-series is really to show the entire process. How does conception, how does birthing practices, how does the development stage contribute to longevity? And the purpose of longevity is not to live a long life, right? Because if you live to 100 and for 30 of those years you're crippled and you can't do much and your brain sucks and your heart's just ticking, that's not really life, right? You're hanging on, but I don't think that's what we all strive for. We all strive for really a health span. So how do we get to 100 and still have our wits about us, right? How do we still perform functions and interact with the world around us, whether that be with our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whatever it might be, so that we can enjoy that part of life. And so we're trying to show the process throughout life, how you can extend life and extend health from the development aspect to the mid 20s, in your 40s, in your 70s and 80s, what it looks like in elderly care, how we can assist our elderly generation to integrate them into society, and also to keep them going. Because if you ask a lot of these older people in their 90s, you ask them what keeps them going, it's usually something simple, right? We were interviewing this old lady in Loma Linda, California, which is one of the blue zones, one of the areas of the world where people live a long time in a very healthy way. She was like 94, and I said, well, you're 94, you don't have your kids around here anymore. They're all gone doing their own thing. What keeps you going? And she said, well, I gotta learn this song for the violin class next Wednesday. Right. And so this is the thing, right? It's always these little things that keep us going. And it could be the violin. It could be walking to the store every day, right? It's always these little things that you find out. Or it could be some relationship, whether it be the kids or the grandkids or whatever it might be. So we are getting into everything. And it's a little bit daunting, but it has to do with how loving relationships affect health and longevity. How does purpose in life affect longevity? How does good drinking water and, of course, diet and exercise? We all think about those, but there's so many other things. How does sound and music and meditation and, walking barefoot on the ground and getting outside in the sun, and how do things like technology detract from that? So these are all the things that we need to think about. And it's based on the premise of these blue zones. So the blue zones, again, are 5 areas around the world that have been sort of identified or pegged as these areas of a high concentration of centenarians, people that live to 100 in a healthy way. And there was a book written about this by Dan Buettner. He was from National Geographic. Did a pretty good job of identifying the sort of these 9 things that he identified in most of these regions, and they mostly ate a plant-based diet. They all had a purpose, these type of things that like I said, there's 9 of them. But when I uncovered that a number of years ago, it always kind of like didn't resonate with me, because I'm like, so what? So what? Okay, so you have a purpose. What does that mean? How does that affect your health? So it may be true that purpose, and it is that purpose extends life and increases health. But how? How at the cellular level does that contribute to health? So that's really what where we're taking this. How does meditation work at the cellular level to extend life? How does a plant-based or an organic or a good diet contribute to health at the cellular level? And what does that even mean? And can we apply those lessons from the blue zones to our modern world? And that is the crux, right? Because Okinawa, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Sardinia, Italy, these are not modern world countries. They're becoming modern, but especially when they looked at them and the data, and if you've got a person that's 95 in 2000, that means they were born in 1905, right? That means the first 40 years of their life was not like it is today. Even in the modern world, that's different. So you got to understand that a 100-year-old at the time they were looking at it lived a much different life than we do today. So how does somebody like yourself, right, or a 20-year-old today, how do they apply those lessons to extend their life given their modern world, which is drastically different? So that's what our goal is, to help get people to understand what longevity is, where health comes from, because health is innate. Health and the way our body works is innate, right? When you cut your finger with a kitchen knife or you break your leg, you don't have to coach it to heal, right? You don't have to like supplement it or doing that. Your finger just heals, right? You just leave it alone, and your body knows what to do. Same thing when you break a leg. You might reset it or whatever, and you might cast it, but you don't have to like go in there and like perform surgery and do things to like sew up the bone, and that doesn't make sense. So the body has innate healing capabilities, and we are trying to help people understand where that comes from and what they can do in their modern world to facilitate that, because that is the discussion that is not being had enough, especially even in the integrative functional medicine type of world that I kind of live in. It's not being addressed enough. How and like I said, your generation is a little bit different, and we're not that far apart in age, but I grew up in a world in high school, we didn't have cell phones. A couple people had pagers. I mean, it's a different world. Very, very few people had computers. And the computers, well, we had computers, but what we had were not like the computers today. And we weren't on them all the time. So even in that, between the difference between you and me is a crazy different reality that we need to understand how that's impacting our health. So it's taking a wide look at things, but at the end of the day, we're not trying to do these sweeping arguments and say, okay, do this, do that, and leave all these questions unanswered as to why that works. What we're trying to do is explain why they work. How does meditation extend your life, right? How? And and I think if you're like me, and I think there's a lot of people out there, they need to know the details a little bit in order to fully implement, right? If you tell somebody to go, do high intensity interval training because that's going to help them burn fat, they might need to know a little bit why. And then they go,
Yeah.
okay, now I get it. Okay, now I'm going to do that, right? But you can't just tell somebody do this and then do that. I mean, some people will do that and just listen to you, but generally people need a little bit of background as to why am I doing this, right? Because it helps them put that into context. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to put things into context, and it's not a story about longevity that only the older people need to worry about. This is a story about how to avoid chronic disease. And I would imagine that you don't want to get Alzheimer's at 50, right? So but at the same time, you're probably not thinking about Alzheimer's right now. You're probably thinking about all kinds of different things. And, I know you're in sort of the nutrition and fitness and performance world, so it's probably on your radar, but you're not going through your day thinking, how can I, avoid Alzheimer's in the next 50 years, right? So the key here is to understand that we're trying to avoid these things that everybody seems to have. And I've been in the health industry long enough to see the shift. What we saw happening in 50-year-olds is now happening at 40-year-olds. What the dementias are happening earlier. The gastrointestinal issues are happening earlier. The hormone imbalances and disruptions are happening earlier. The number of women that are not getting their period and not getting their natural cycle, their hair's falling out, all kinds of stuff. It's crazy. And you may not realize it, but everybody that you pass on the street is probably dealing with something. Some kind of gastrointestinal issue, some kind of skin issue, some kind of hair issue, some kind of sleep disturbance. I mean, these things are insanely common, such that they're actually becoming the new norm. And that's not okay. And the problem with when it's your norm is that it's like walking into a room that's dimly lit. You might walk in thinking that the lighting's fine, and then somebody turns up the dimmer switch, right, to full blast, and you're like, whoa, holy smokes, the lights are on, right? Wow, I didn't even realize, right? So it's kind of like that. And when you're going through your life and you have all these minor issues, minor headaches, you got the tinnitus, the ringing in your ear maybe every now and again, you get your eyelids twitching every now and again, all these little signs and symptoms. I've had that skin thing forever, right? That's just the way it is. These type of things are little signals to us that something is going on at the biological level that shouldn't be happening. And so the development of that is what we're trying to prevent. We're trying to prevent this thing from getting out of control. And the only way to do that really is to understand where this stuff is coming from, why it's happening, and how to live a healthy lifestyle as early as possible so that they don't progress and develop, because these things don't come out of nowhere. You don't just wake up one day and, have irritable bowel syndrome, right? And all these things. It may seem like that, and sometimes it can sort of occur like that, but the reality is that they've been developing for a number of years, and they finally get to a sort of a breaking point, and you start to realize it.
So I have about 100 different questions
Yeah, I
right
know. I
now.
ramble. I know.
No, it's good. It's lots of information. I think one of the first things, the most obvious question to ask is, so let's say someone that hasn't really been paying attention to this for the last 25 years, or they're 25 years old. Let's say their mom was normal, didn't do anything super special. What did they start doing now to help them live a longer and healthier life?
Yeah, I think the most important one, and I think it's the most overlooked one, is the relationships that you have in your life. And this is not hyperbole. This is not something that I'm just saying because it's fluffy and it sounds nice. It is the reality. If you live in a world where you don't like your boss, you fight with your mother all the time, you don't have a great relationship with your brother, your friends are kind of all over the map, that will kill you faster than just about anything. Because it creates these negative emotions and these disturbances in your, should say, bioenergetic field. And gets into the biophysics, and I don't want to go too far down that line, but at the end of the day, those emotions create issues physically in the body. And this is well known. It's been well studied. It's sort of a field called psychosomatic healing or psychosomatic injury, where you can literally have something from your childhood. If, let's say, you were abused verbally or physically, let's say you experienced divorce, or your parents were always fighting, you set up protective mechanisms in your psyche at a young age. You're very malleable and pliable when you're 8 and 10 and all these things. So you're picking up the world around you. You can't filter it very well. You don't have that ability yet. And so you pick up all these things, and you develop these habits, and you develop these unconscious or subconscious ways of dealing with them that protect you in that young stage. And we can carry those with us through our adulthood. And what I actually find is it's actually the people that are like really hard workers, that are like type A, go-getter, go kill it attitudes. And they are successful usually, and usually they're really good people. But the mechanisms that we use to protect ourselves can be carried forward, and those actually end up causing physical injury and physical harm, whether it be in the kidneys, the liver, the gut, the whatever. And so again, that's part of the area that we want to touch on in the film, because that's an important aspect. So the relationships that you carry are critical. It's not your responsibility to take care of everybody, even if it's a family member. If you don't have a great relationship with your family member, either A, work on yourself so that you can fix that, right? So tame the ego down a little bit, become more empathetic, more loving, more communicative, these type of things, as opposed to, he or she did this and, it's his fault and, my dad sucked and all these things, right? Work to resolve that within yourself, or excommunicate from them. That it's one of the hardest things in the world, but a lot of my clients will have very abusive relationship with a spouse or a child or whatever, and the most healing thing for their body is to eliminate that relationship, or kind of put it on hold, or put it in the background, or work on it and heal it, because you can't get better. I don't care how many supplements you take, what kind of diet you have. None of that shit matters if you don't fix those very basic things that are constantly draining you. I mean, this is an internal stressor, that your conscious or your subconscious mind is constantly dealing with. So that's a huge one. Fix relationships. Work to build new great relationships, personal relationships. I mean, this day and age is a little bit different. It's sometimes harder to build real relationships with people, but that is a critical component. So fix the relationships, and then I think the other one, to be honest, is technology. Understand our relationship with technology. The electromagnetic environment that we are all swimming in right now, and is to some degree unavoidable because of all the cell towers and radio frequencies that are all around us. It's well understood. It's not a mystery anymore. This stuff is damaging to us in very profound ways. And while we can't really do a ton about our local environment, if you live in an apartment building in New York City, I mean, you're just kind of screwed, to be honest. You can either move, and that is a very good, realistic option, as hard as that may sound. But in terms of living longer and better, yeah, moving to a place that's not so chaotic in the electromagnetic aspect of things can be helpful. But I think more practically, understand your relationship with your personal electronics, right? Are you staring at a computer screen all day long? If you are, that you need to take measures to protect yourself, right? You have blue blocking glasses. These are kind of like a day blue blockers that block some of the electromagnetic spectrum, the blue light specifically, that is very, very harmful to us. But those type of things. There's also a program called Flux, Flux, that you can download on your computer. These are the things that a 22-year-old should be thinking about. That is a critical component. Understand how your technology is damaging your health. Again, I did not grow up in an environment where I was on a computer all day long. Now I'm in an environment where I'm on a computer damn near all day long. And so the remedy to that is to bring in more natural light. Open your windows, get the real light coming through. Even if it's in the winter and you're in a cloudy place. I used to live in Seattle. Not a lot of sun in Seattle in December. But there's still natural light. So getting natural light, understanding that the lighting overhead is impacting you. So if this is all new to you, I know it sounds daunting and it sounds like I'm sort of a hypochondriac in a way, but this is reality. The lights today are not what they were 25 years ago. Totally different. And I used to be an engineer in the space of energy engineering, and I looked at lighting. I was involved with lighting. In fact, it's part of the reason why I left, because my group was installing the new LED street lights that replace, and if you're in a big city, you probably have seen them, that replace those orange metal halide kind of. They almost are disgusting, but they're beautiful in the sense of health. They're orangish, kind of ugly, but now we have these new beautiful kind of white lights that these LEDs. Man, they're crazy bad for us. So part of the reason I left is because of that stuff. But understand that, you know, the lighting aspect is probably the biggest one that you can. And if, like I said, if this is new, just go look into this. That's what I ask you if you're concerned about your health. In China and Japan, they're actually having major issues. Most of Japan is myopic. They have eye issues, and it's because their society is so hell-bent on technology. They're sitting in front of computers all day long. You understand the distance doesn't change, right? If you're in a natural world, if you're in the woods, you're walking around, whatever, or go to the beach or wherever, go outside, the distance that your eyes are operating on is always changing, right? You're looking far, you're looking near, you're looking there, you're looking here. When you're looking at a computer, you're looking at one distance all day long and it doesn't change. And you're looking at an artificially lit screen that our biology has never been exposed to in its history. That spectrum has never been displayed to our eyes, right? We get the colors, of course, the blues and the greens and all these things, but your screen is absent of UV light, which is critical for our health. It's absent of infrared light, which is critical for our health. And it just contains the visible spectrum, you know, the blues, the greens, the reds, and it particularly spikes in blue. So this is unnatural. That if there's anything I can at least get you to take away, is it's unnatural. And anything that's unnatural, you have to start with the premise that it's probably not good for us. It's not always the case, but that's a pretty good rule of thumb. And so understand your relationship with technology. You know, if you can, a standing desk, you know, protect yourself from the blue on the screens by either wearing the goggles, the glasses, orange glasses, get the Flux on there. That is for somebody who is looking at a computer screen all day. If you've got a cell phone, which 98% of people do, in airplane mode as often as you can. That's a good work hack too. If you're trying to get stuff done, put your phone in airplane mode. Don't let people bother you. Every 5 minutes or every hour for 5 or 10 minutes, turn it back on, see all the messages come through, respond accordingly. You know, that type of thing. But keeping that thing in airplane mode and away from your body, go look at and read the specs inside the Apple little paper booklet that comes with the phone. Read what it says. It tells you that it's not a good idea to put the phone up against your body, that it should remain a certain distance away from your body. This is, again, into the physics side of things, but the distance matters. So the fact that your cell phone is on is if it's 10 feet away from you, is actually impacting you differently than if I'm holding it up to my head, right? So those are the things that I think about. And, you know, in LA here, it's damn near always sunny. And what I see is people always with sunglasses on. They, you know, the other day I saw a mother with a baby harness in the front, right? She's got her baby harnessed in her front, and the baby's completely covered. You know, God forbid the baby gets any, you know, actual natural sunlight on the skin, which is completely healthy, by the way. Completely covered. The mother's got sunglasses on. She's talking on her phone, which is up to her ear, and the baby's head is right there as well. And I'm just going, oh my God, I mean, that's just there's no judgment, but it's just ignorance. And this is the ignorance that I'm trying to hopefully get rid of. And, if you want to drink a Diet Coke and go for it, and it's bad for you, go for it. I do dumb shit all the time, right? I'll have things that I know are unhealthy for me, but it's a conscious decision, right? I try to limit it. I try to create a healthy relationship with it. I don't create a habit out of it. Same thing with technology. It's easy for us to look at our diet and say, oh, I don't want to create habits of drinking all the time, or eating such and such food. I don't want to have Snickers all the time, and all these things, right? That's an easy concept. We need to get in the idea of we need to create good habits with our technology as well. Technology is not going away. It's here to stay. It's going to be more and more a part of our life. It's going to get bigger, badder, and cooler. And in that respect, we have to create a good relationship with it. And if you don't, you're going to get health issues. I promise you. That's just the reality. It's not a rule that I'm making up, and it's not a dogma that I make money off of. I don't make money off of this message. The reality is that technology is harming you. And I brought up Japan. China's having an issue right now where children that are developing 14, 15, 16, they have no interest in the opposite sex. None. They don't want boyfriends, girlfriends. They don't want to engage in sexual activity, these type of things. And that sounds great for probably a parent, but it's a big problem for society if people are not wanting to engage in real relationships and not wanting to procreate on some level. You can make the argument that we need to, control population a little bit, and hopefully it dampens out. But the reality is that we're actually killing ourselves in such a way that population won't get out of control anyway, because we're killing ourselves. So the technology is creating hormonal disturbances in these populations in China, to the point where the government is actually they're getting think tanks and groups of people together to figure out how to solve this problem. What's going on? How do we solve it? The technology is disrupting hormonal patterns in young developing children, and it's going to cause major problems in their health later on. So, again, if you're familiar with this stuff, you probably know what I'm talking about. You want to go deeper, great. If you've never heard of this stuff, I encourage you to look it up. It doesn't take much of a Google search to figure this out. Blue light from technology, from computer screens, phones, TVs, is actually making kids fat. And that sounds weird, but really what's happening is that the blue light is sending a signal to the eye. The eye is connected to the brain. So the eye is the pathway by which our brain operates, our pituitary gland. Pituitary gland controls all hormone function, essentially. So, if you want to have a good fat burning ability in your liver, that's controlled by the connection between the brain and the liver. So the brain and the liver have to be on the same clock. And so the clock is driven by your eye, which is driven by light. And that is always the case. And you know this because if you go camping, you start to get tired right around 9:30, 10 or whatever. Like the sun starts to set and you're outside and there's no real exogenous light source. You start to get tired, right? And then you wake up due to the light. We're controlled by light. If you go, there's a number of experiments where this guy, he was brilliant. He went down into a cave and did all these experiments in a cave where there was essentially no light. And his bodily rhythm started to get a little off kilter. And his sense of time started to get screwed up. So he had people above and he would chart his time. He was charting his time in there, and he was trying to keep track of it based on his daily rhythms, his natural bodily rhythms. And sometimes he thought what had been 6 hours was like 18 hours. He'd been up for like 26 hours at one point. And he's like, what the hell? I didn't even realize that. And then sometimes it'd be 4 hours, and he'd be up for like 8 hours and then go to sleep. So his rhythms got all screwed up. And so you have to understand, and this is, again, one of the things that we're going to be really hammering home in the documentary, is we have clocks all over our body. Your liver has a clock. These are called clock genes, and they sit in front of all the cells in all the tissues in all the body. So you've got clocks in your liver, you've got clocks in your kidney, you've got clocks in your spleen, in your gastrointestinal tract, in your brain, everywhere, and in your skin. The master clock is in your brain, and that clock needs to be synchronized with the rest of your body, so it knows when to produce certain hormones and certain functions and certain proteins and all these things. So if you're staring at a computer screen all day and you get this weird light source that the body has never really seen, this spectrum, your brain doesn't really know how to doesn't know what to do with that in the proper sense. It will get screwed up. And if you're looking at a screen, at a regular blue lit screen at 1 a.m., you're going to have a problem sleeping. And this is the main reason so many people are having a difficult time sleeping. They can't go to sleep when they want to. And when I say that, I mean, you don't decide when you go to sleep, right? You ever been driving down a road and you're just like, can't keep your eyes open, right? Like you're not deciding that you're like going to sleep. You're trying everything you do not to go to sleep. That's your natural hormonal production controlling that. So what we want is we want the hormones to kick in and to start behaving the way they're supposed to. So you naturally get tired, at a certain time of night, 9:30, 10, whatever it might be. And you can't help it but want to go lay your head on a pillow and go to bed, and you stay asleep, you sleep well. And there's a difference between sleeping long and sleeping well. So you want to sleep well and wake up refreshed. And that is what sleep should be. And if you go camping for 2 weeks straight and sleep on the ground and live in a natural way, your sleep will completely reset. That will show you how disrupted your sleep is in our natural environment. And so, again, the reason I'm bringing this up is because technology is going to continue to move, and it's going to continue to become more of an issue or more integrated in our lives. And we have to understand how that's going to impact. I mean, if you're a bodybuilder or if you're somebody trying to lose weight, you better get control of your circadian rhythms, of your light cycle. This is a fundamental principle that I work with in every single one of my clients, whether they have cancer, skin issues, hormonal issues, or they want to lose weight or, get all jacked up. They need to get their circadian rhythm under control because that is what guides hormones, and hormones guide function. So the two big things, just to kind of recap, create good relationships and extricate any bad relationships or fix them, because that is damaging your health. It's not just damaging your psyche, it's damaging your health in the most profound ways because it's a constant source of stress in the body. And then fix your circadian rhythms. Get in touch with the natural light cycle. And to give you some practical applications of that, go outside in the morning as soon as you wake up, go get natural light in your eyes. That sets your rhythm. That sets the clock, and your body, now your brain knows, okay, it's morning because I see the natural sunlight and I understand how that works. So go outside for 10, 20, 30 minutes. Drink your coffee out there, read your morning paper, whatever you do, walk your dog. Get that light in your eyes. Ideally, you'd be barefoot on the ground, but not to go too far with it. Just get outside. And at night, block as much blue light, exogenous blue light as you can from overheads, from the TV, from your screens, from your phones, and wear glasses for that. Or, they have orange bulbs that you can, use. They've got flux on your computer. Generally, if you want to watch TV, you got to wear the orange glasses and kind of look like a goofball. But, at this day and age, if we want to talk about biohacking and improving yourself and improving your physiology, you want to think better the next day, fix your sleep. You want to perform better in the gym or at your CrossFit box or, at a Spartan race or whatever you're doing physically, fix your sleep. Go ask any of the world-class athletes at the Olympic level or a Navy SEAL, and they'll tell you this is the thing. Any of those coaches that are working with those guys, number one thing that they need to do, fix the sleep, because sleep is where your health rebuilds. That is where everything starts to recycle and all the trash gets taken out. That's how you rebuild. And it's the rebuilding and renewal process of the body that is sort of natural that allows us to keep going. So, fix those things. And there's a billion other, but of course, but those two things I think are the most overlooked and underappreciated aspects to health. And if you can fix those two things, I can promise you, you're going to live a happier life, you're going to live a healthier life, and you're going to live a longer life.
Jason, I could talk with you all day, but I want to be respectful of your time. This is all great, and it's a lot of stuff, to be honest, that I kind of know. It's good to hear it back. Actually, before you go, one quick question I'm curious about is, I have flux, but it's only active at night. As far as, and I'm someone that works behind the computer all day long. I try to take basically I'll do 50 minutes on, 10 minutes go, walk outside, all that.
That's a good
kind
strategy.
of. Okay, I was gonna say, is there anything else? I'm kind of stuck because all my work is on the computer, and I know it's not great for me, but
that's the reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat, right? So yeah, what I would tell people is use flux even during the day. So some people will tell you, we need blue light during the day to set circadian cycles and all this stuff. Trust me, you're getting plenty of blue light from the computer, even if you dim it with flux. So it's not necessarily the absence or the gaining of blue light. It's actually you want natural light. So if you work from home, or if you're a college student or whatever, if you have the ability to go work outside, on a picnic bench, and you can get Wi-Fi, or if you can turn off your Wi-Fi, whatever, go outside and work. That's amazing. The more light that you can get on your skin and in your eyes while you're on a computer, because if I can stare at a computer and I got light coming in all over around, right? I mean, your light doesn't just come from one direction, right? It's coming from all over. So working outside is a great solution to that, as often as you can. If you're in a cold environment, and you don't like a rainy environment, then okay, do it in the summer at least. But the more natural light that you can incorporate, if you're in a place where you can, at the very least, get as many windows in so that you can shut off your overhead lighting. That's a great trick. If you're not in a place where you can make that realistic, open your windows so that light comes through, because UV light will never penetrate glass. Most of them have a UV coating. So the fact that the windows are closed and the light's getting in is a good trick to turn off your lights. So what you want to do is get that natural light so you can turn off your lights. But the next best thing to do is open your windows so that you can get the light in. So even if it's not directly in your eyes, it's still penetrating, it's still bouncing around. It doesn't just, dissipate. So it's in there. So open your windows, get as much natural light in your environment as you can. Use flux during the day, and use it in a way that is, it's not so orange, it's not like completely blocking out the blue. At least just dim it. If we can just dim it a little bit, because these screens are crazy powerful these days. They aren't like the screens 15, 20 years ago. So, just dim it a little bit. That will protect you. Or wear glasses and during the day while you're on the computer. It's going to protect your eyes. Your eyesight will. I've actually had clients their eyesight is improved by doing this. So one gal, she couldn't see her phone from when she held it out at arm's distance before. Now she can. And this is like a 50-some-odd-year-old woman. Her eye doctor had to change her prescription on her glasses because her eyesight improved. So if you want to maintain eyesight, if you want to improve it, that's what you do. You need more natural light. So use flux during the day. At night, it should be really orange as you can get it. The more blue and green you can block, the better. I understand if you're editing photos or if you're doing something that needs color, you might have to adjust that for that purpose. So do that during the day. I think that is critical. And then, like you said, I think getting up and moving around every few minutes, every couple hours or every hour. The number one thing I think that I worry about is the constant distance. So get up, or even if it's just looking around, and just use your eyes, to change the distance. I mean, that's important function to have. So again, I understand the practical application of this. I live in this world. I'm on a computer all day long. I'm all about the practical application of how to improve this stuff. I don't want to create this fear complex that technology is out here destroying us and killing us. We just have to use it intelligently. And the more intelligently you can use it, the better. The more you can get off it, the better. But again, the reality is that, it's a part of our lives. And so, I think it's disengaging with as many nonsensical things that you're doing on a computer. So if you're on the computer just to look at Facebook for 5 hours a day, see and just goofing around, finding, cat videos, probably a better use of your time and a better use of your health than to do that. But yeah, I think you have it down. I think, it's important just to move around and get up and get away from it. You're going to increase your productivity that way too. I think that's, if anybody listens to Tim Ferriss or any of the productivity kind of people out there, turn stuff off and focus on your task. Don't switch a bunch of tasks at the same time. You're on your phone, you're looking at your computer, you're doing this, you're writing stuff down. I mean, that's just a mess for productivity. So stay focused on the task at hand, and then take breaks and rejuvenate. Do some push-ups, go walk around, whatever it is. Get the blood pumping, get your eyes moving, go interact with somebody. I mean, this was like the old way they used to do this is they'd go to the water cooler and they'd BS at the water cooler back in the day. So using some of those strategies can be extremely helpful.
So much great information. I want to switch gears and ask you one last question before we start wrapping up. And that's basically just, if you could give advice to the 20-somethings out there listening, it could be about anything. It could be something, just reiterate something we already talked about, or something completely different. What advice would you have for all the 20-somethings listening?
Yeah, I think from my experience, what I wish I would have known at that age is to keep exploring, keep engaging in new tasks. So what you learn when you talk to older people is that what they continue to tell you is that picking up new tasks is what keeps them young. It's what keeps their brain sharp. It's what keeps them motivated to continue to learn. So, keep learning. I mean, yes, I understand, especially this day and age, the objective is to focus on one thing and just be the best at it, right? And that's great. That will carry you far in the sort of post-industrial kind of economic world that we live in, right? But at the end of the day, for quality of life and for sanity and for health, and especially for brain health, pick up new tasks, learn something new, challenge your current viewpoints. If you are so dogmatic and you think that the ketogenic diet is the only diet and there's no way that to do anything else other than the ketogenic diet, go find some things that contradict that. And they may be horribly written, they may be completely wrong, but you're going to hopefully find some nuggets in there that says, oh, maybe it's okay to do something else in this circumstance, or I never thought of it that way. Or, so continue to challenge your viewpoints, pick up new skills, pick up new tasks, continue learning, and diversify your ability to think and respond and increase your experiences. The more experiences you have, if you've never traveled outside the U.S., go travel outside the U.S. Best experience you can pick up. You're going to find out things about the world and about yourself that you never thought that you could do. And so the problem that I see today is that people are getting stuck in their path. And they think that if they just stay on this path, that they're going to find success and happiness and wealth and all the things that they've ever wanted. And I think what I tend to see from my own experience and from that of others is that the people that have done that, what they wish they had done is engage in other things. They wish they had tried something else. They wish they had done this when they were younger. They wish they had stopped to look around a little bit, right? And so be present, I think, is the other thing that I would say, is just be present. Stop worrying about the future. It's coming and it'll be fine. There's nothing to worry about. Enjoy being 25 and 28 and whatever, because you ain't going to get that back. So enjoy that part of your life. Be present in where you are. Don't be in any rush. There's nothing to rush to. It's like a symphony, right? If the end goal of the symphony was the last note, and that would be silly, right? You'd walk into a concert hall and you'd hear the last note, the audience would be like, that was stupid, right? The whole fun of it is in the process. It's in the symphony. It's in the progression, right? The ups and downs and the whole emotion. So it's not the beginning, it's not the middle, it's not the end, it's the whole thing. So enjoy the whole thing. Realize that it's an evolving process. You are not going to be the same person 10 years from now. But you don't need to rush to anything. There's nothing to get to. So I really wish somebody had told me that there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. You're going to get to some point and you're going to have all these things or do all these things or whatever. And the only thing you're going to remember, and even a 20-something can understand this, remember back in high school, remember when we did that, remember when in college, when, you're a freshman and everything was new, right? Like, you kind of appreciate those things looking backward. And that's the benefit of hindsight. But what's interesting is that you always forget the negative stuff. Like, you don't really remember how stressed out you were leading up to a test, right? You just kind of remember it being sort of, crazy or stressful or whatever. But you don't remember really how scared you were or whatever, right? So you only remember the good stuff anyway. So just try to be present in that and don't rush. Enjoy every second of it. And the goal is to gain experiences. If you could have, if experiences were like marbles and you're trying to collect as many as you can, that's the goal. The goal isn't to find the best one and ditch all the rest. Just keep picking them up. And so gain as many as you experience. But that requires an open mind, and it requires a little bit of kind of a lack of fear. You got to let go of the fear and just go do stuff and try things. And you're going to suck at everything you do the first time, usually. There's rarely anything that you pick up the first time and just are good at. So enjoy the process of sucking at something and getting good at it and then, mastering it, right? But the idea of setting goals, and this is somewhat controversial, but it's the dumbest thing that you could do is set goals. Because when you set goals, you either fail, and the emotion that comes with that is I failed, right? Or you succeed. And then whenever you succeed at a goal, you're inevitably left with, now what? Right? Now what am I going to do? Okay, I set a new goal, right? And what you do is you just keep chasing these goals to what end? You forget that the process of achieving the goal is the fun stuff, is the good stuff. And the goal is just the goal, right? It's sort of arbitrary and it's sort of silly. You can set objectives, but what I think is more appropriate is to try to understand where you want to go vaguely and be like, okay, this is what I want to do. That's the person I want to be. And, what kind of things do I do to get there? Right. And so, and there's a lot of people that will tell you that goals suck. I think Tony Robbins, I think he even says that there's a lot of people out there that agree with that notion that setting goals is kind of stupid. So get this idea out of your head that you need to set a goal and achieve it and write it on the board and, go after it in a certain time frame. You can't predict how long it's going to take to do anything, nor would you want to. And sometimes, when if you set a goal 6 months out, sometimes you get to month 3 and you're like, yeah, I don't really want that goal anymore. Right. But some of us, I used to be like this, that you get in this like ego mindset of like, no way, I'm finishing this. I'm not a quitter. I'm going to carry this forward. I'm going to reach that goal. That's just stupid, So it's okay to shift your goals and shift the target. Just have an idea of where you want to go and, work at it, but at the same time, be present in it. And that is what you will get to understand. And that may be something that you don't understand until you understand it. It may be something that you're just hearing and it sounds nice and you might agree with it on a, mental level. But I think as you go, at some point it starts to make sense and you say, okay, I get it now. It is just about being present now and enjoying every little thing, the struggle, the fear, the chaos, the joy, everything that you're getting is part of the process. So just learn to be in that. And this goes to all the religious texts, all the spiritual texts, all that stuff that people talk about. It's being present in the now. And at the end of the day, to be honest, that's where health is too. Health is a matter of being present. It's the lack of health or the presence of disease is actually a manifestation of things that happened in the past that you're regretting or that you have negative emotions about, and the fear of the future, the fear of what's coming. So if you are truly present, you can't be sick. And it's a weird notion, but there's a lot of evidence to suggest that that's reality, is that when you are truly present in who you are and what you are, then you can't get sick. So just to enjoy every part of the journey, because that's it. That's the game. The game is the process. It's not the end. There is no end. There's nothing to end to. So there's no finish line. And just enjoy it.
Awesome. Jason, where can people find out more about you?
They can go to my website, jasonperl.com. I've got kind of a library of the podcasts that I've done and the blogs that I've written, and it's mostly centered around health, and it's pretty high level stuff. So if you're kind of a health geek, you might enjoy it. It's generally pretty controversial stuff. It's not something that is talked about a lot. So if you like finding that stuff, you might enjoy it. And my podcast is You Optimized Radio. So like yours, it really is just about advice and learning from people that have a really great message to improve yourself. So it's focused on health, performance, longevity, that type of things. And then, for anybody out there, we really need help with this docuseries, funding it. It's a heck of a lot of money to try to produce this thing. We've got to hire a lot of people to do a lot of things. So if it resonates with you, we would love a donation. Every little donation is like a hug. I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's like $5 comes in, $11 comes in, $20 comes in, and you're like, it just feels so good. So it may not feel like you're helping us get very far, but I promise you that it is just like a little hug, and it does get us closer. So it is greatly appreciated, that type of thing. So just go to Indiegogo.com and you can search The Truth About Aging. And then you said you'll have a link in there too. So that's great. But, again, I'm just mostly out there spreading a message. So find the things that resonate with you and hopefully something does. And, just keep going with it.
Perfect. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you did, make sure you hit the big red subscribe button down below. You can also check me out on Facebook and on Twitter, and I release a new video every Monday, and by hitting that subscribe button, you'll get those new videos every Monday. And this is really a podcast. It's also a website. You can check out the website. It's howtodoyour20s.com. I'll put a link right over here as well. And what it's all about is trying to improve your life. And we specifically focus on things that people in their 20s are interested in. So make sure you like the video if you liked it, subscribe, like us on Facebook and Twitter, whatever. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again on another video.